this is the second time in 10 years that a rule has been proposed. And so what this means is like the Biden administration is actually hearing and listening when we say that we need a fully funded childcare system that works for everyone. So this is already a big win for us. So I just want to make sure we take a minute to like celebrate this moment and where we are, and while also acknowledging that we still have some work to do. But the reason we're hosting this party is so that we can show support for the rule and the impact that it's going to have on so many of the families in this meeting, but also the families in our communities. And so we are going to spend some time today submitting our comments to ACF, as well as just have some fun. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alejandra, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the process for making a rule and this rule specifically.
Thank you so much for sharing. Just wanted to make sure that everyone's seeing my screen before we get started. Thumbs up from anyone?
Yes.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mercedes, and UPLAN for inviting CLASP to this conversation. As Mercedes just mentioned, on July 13th, the Department of Health and Human Services released the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking on improving child care access, affordability, and stability in the Child Care and Development Block Grant. So this is a proposed revision to the existing regulation that governs the Child Care and Development Block Grant, or we also call it CCBG. This also means that the agency is looking for comments on their proposed rule, and the proposed rule comment period is for 45 days. And for many of you, this might be something that you're familiar with, but for others, this may be new. So we first wanted to start off by explaining that there's different kinds of advocacy processes that are used. And the two that I want to highlight today are administrative advocacy and congressional advocacy. What is the difference between these two? In the administrative advocacy, and this is where the notice of proposed rulemaking falls into this bucket, it really targets government agencies and regulatory bodies who are responsible for implementing and enforcing laws and regulations. So as advocates, we engage directly with government officials, with agency staff and decision makers through meetings, public comments on proposed rules like we are doing today, formal correspondence, and more. We're here to provide evidence, data, expert opinions to support our positions and to influence agencies in their actions. And administrative advocacy can also lead to changes on how laws and regulations are interpreted, enforced, or applied. Now, on the other hand, congressional advocacy aims to influence members of Congress and their legislative staff. So advocates usually engage with members of Congress through meetings, through letters, testimonies in congressional hearings, and grassroots campaigns to mobilize public support. Congressional advocacy usually leads to the introduction of bills or amendments or provisions that are reflected in the policies that we advocate for. And successful advocacy may also result in the passage of new legislation or modifying existing law. So what is a notice of proposed rulemaking, or an NPRM? So as I mentioned previously, the administrative advocacy often happens when an agency releases a notice of proposed rulemaking. And an NPRM is a formal document that's issued by a government agency to propose changes to an existing rule or to introduce new rules or regulations. So in other words, it is a way for the government to suggest modifications or additions to how certain things are governed and regulated. So after we have the NPRM and it's published, then it is typically designated from either 30 to 60 days, a period in which the public can submit comments or responses to the proposed rule. And as parent advocates, you can participate by sharing your experiences, your concerns, your ideas, everything that you want to share regarding the proposed changes. Your feedback will be carefully considered before the final rule is put into place. So after the government gathers all of these public comments on their proposed rule, the agency reviews all of the comments and conducts a further analysis to assess the potential impacts of the proposed rule. They may also make revisions or adjustments based on the feedback that they receive to address the concerns and improve the rule's effectiveness. Now, once the agency has analyzed all the public comments and made the necessary changes, then the final version of the rule is published in the Federal Register. And the final rule will be effective 60 days after it is published. The final rule contains a summary of the submitted comments and the agency's responses to these comments. And while it is not law, the final rule has the force of law. So why are we here and why is this important? Being aware and engaged in the NPRM process is essential for parent advocates, as it allows you to shape the rules and regulations that impact your family's well-being and your overall rights. This helps to ensure that the government and its agencies are considering diverse perspectives and making informed decisions that are reflective of the interests and needs of the public they serve. It is also an opportunity to make your voices heard and to ensure that the government takes into account the interests and needs of families like yours. So the current NPRM, which we're here to talk about today, includes many things, but we wanted to highlight two sections for parents to consider, and these are changes to copayments as well as the application and enrollment practices. So first, thinking about copayments, the NPRM prohibits copayments over 7% of family income for an entire family, inclusive of all children. It also allows state child care agencies to waive copayments for families up to 150% of the federal poverty level, or around $45,000 for family of four, and families with children with disabilities, but it does not waive copayments for any other population. It also requires states to post information about their copayment scales online and easily accessible for families to access. Now, on the application and enrollment, it allows states to implement presumptive eligibility before all documentation is verified. And presumptive eligibility for child care subsidies is a policy that allows families to receive temporary child care assistance while their eligibility for their program is being determined. And this means that families can get immediate financial assistance to pay for child care services, even as their application is still being processed and verified. And during this provisional period, families are allowed time to submit any outstanding documents while getting access to the much needed care. The rule also clarifies existing flexibility to use eligibility determinations from other public benefits programs to verify eligibility for the Child Care and Development Fund. And it also requires states to offer online applications, just to name a few of the things that are included in the NPRM. There is a lot more, so we're happy to answer questions on that today. And as I mentioned, we are here today so that parents have the opportunity to respond to this rule. And my colleague Tiffany and I are on the call today to answer any questions that you might have on the NPRM proposed rule or on the NPRM process as a whole. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and invite my colleague Tiffany to also join me off mute and to see if the parents have any questions. Any questions? Oh,
on the
go ahead,
chat.
Julie.
Kristen is asking, it is not law, but it has the force of law. So what that means?
Yes, I'll let Tiffany answer as she answered in the chat.
Yes, so I put this answer in the chat. It's a great question. So the difference here is that the 2016 rule, because it was tied to the 2014 legislation that went through Congress and was passed, that was considered law. But any changes made by HHS, including this NPRM, they have the authority of law, but they haven't gone through Congress. HHS, as the agency that has authority to make changes, can do so and has the power to do so. So it's a slight difference, really just stating that though it didn't go through a congressional vote, the agency, which is HHS, still has the power to make these changes. I hope that was helpful.
Any other questions for our friends at CLASP? Remember, there are no such thing as a bad question.
I have another question. When you had said that it had to, they would go by family size, including all children in the home. Currently, any adult children, their income is also included, even though they are dependents. Do you know how that is addressed?
And Christelle, just so I'm understanding you, you're talking about for the 7% co-payment?
Yeah, for the family fees.
Yeah, so for the family fees, it addresses children who would be under the CCDF rule. So to my knowledge, not any adults, additional adults that would be in the family in the home.
But I think that's a great flag, and that's something that you can include in your comment as something that they should consider. So that's a great question. Any other questions? And we're also happy to stick around as you all continue the conversation, and maybe questions pop up. Feel free to add them in the chat or come off mute. We'll be here pretty much the whole time. So happy to continue answering more questions.
So I have a question. So both of my children are on the autism spectrum, and we have been kicked out of more daycares than I can count on both of my hands. Does this provide them with additional protections against that? Because we'll get the excuse of we can't manage their behavior, we're not properly equipped for this. Like, you name it, I probably have a paper in my filing cabinet with it written on it.
That's also a great question. So what this addresses is flexibility that states have to increase access for children with disabilities and other groups of families and children, but doesn't say anything specific to, for example, being suspended or pushed out of a program, but does address how states can be thinking about serving more families. But I think that is also something that's really great to uplift in comments so that HHS is thinking about that and is really clear when they talk to states about being able to serve as many children as possible, including children with disabilities.
There is another question in the chat. I heard children with disability, does disabled adults that are?
I was doing the Zoom stare down with Alejandra, but another great question. So this rule just covers up to, again, the CCDF rules. So it would be up to age 21, as Christelle put in the chat, of disabled young adults, but not past that age period. So just want to mention that's what this covers.
I'm reading the question because not everyone is able to read it. So that's another question, is what impact or connection does it have on others?
Another great question. What impact connection does it have? This is a question I'll answer. It kind of varies state by state. So specifically for services like TANF, states, again, have the flexibility or the openness to use additional TANF resources to support childcare. That's going to, again, look different from state to state. But that is the kind of immediate impact that this NPRM allows states to consider.
And I'll just add, states can transfer a maximum of 30% of TANF funds to CCDBG funds. Most states transfer some portion of TANF funds to their CCDBG funds and provide child care support through some of those funds as well. We also have a report that's coming out on this for the 2020 spending data, which I'm sure we can send your way once it's published. We do have the 2019 version, but the data is delayed, and so we don't have the most accurate up-to-date data on how much states are spending from their TANF funds on childcare.
It looks like Jennifer has her hand up.
Hi there, Jennifer Greppy here with Parent Voices California. And as you know, here in California, we just passed a pretty progressive co-payment policy. And when we are doing our comments, we were kind of wondering if it's appropriate for us to put in things that, okay, so for instance, we would love to be able to say we want to eliminate co-payments altogether, right? But CCDF programs are required to have some kind of sliding scale, co-payment system. Is this someplace where we can add comments like that, where we would like to see an ideal situation, which is to eliminate the co-payments altogether? Or is this someplace that we need that's not possible because of the federal rule?
That's a great question. We've been thinking about that as well, and how we're thinking about comments, writing comments. I think it would be appropriate to use California as an example. I know that in other places, people are uplifting the work that you all have done and the great progress you've made. So I think great to include that so that HHS hears that. And I also think that, it would be great as well to uplift things like, additional funding from the federal government to be able to support states in doing that, because this is really going to fall each state to be able to cover. So I think it would be very helpful for them to hear that comment coming from you.
Yeah, because, while we were able to get a really great policy passed, ideally what we would have loved to do was just eliminate co-payments altogether. And so that's what our parents really wanted and needed. And if our state had the dollars to do that, we should be able to do it, but we're not allowed to do that. And so while yes, we always want the federal government to chip in more so that more states have the ability to, make this policy a reality locally, even for those states that want to put the money in, we're not allowed to. And so thanks for the info to let us know that at least we can make that as a comment, not that they necessarily will do it or allow it, but we can at least say what ideally we would want.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I will share that, with these comments in particular, it seems to be that ACF is open to hearing as much feedback as possible, especially because, as Alejandra went through in the presentation, this will soon be final, and just thinking about what's coming ahead and making sure that they hear as much perspective as possible in their decision making is always important. So I think that's a great idea that you have to add that comment.
Yes, great question, Jennifer, and still so thrilled about your recent win. Super exciting. I want us to get to Maria's question, and then I'm going to move us on. Don't worry if you don't get a chance to ask your question right now, because the wonderful ladies of CLASP are going to stay on and be able to answer other questions as we get further on in the agenda. But I did see that Maria had popped a question in the chat. Let me go back to it. Oh no.
I can answer. So here, Maria is asking about presumptive eligibility. Presumptive eligibility is currently being implemented in 4 states and 1 county, so it's relatively new. This is the first time that ACF includes an encouragement for states to use it, and actually provides language to clarify that child care providers will be paid regardless of the eligibility determination of the family. So I think that was an important clarification made in the proposed rule. In terms of if families have to repay the child care, that is probably going to be left up to the states. There's still a lot of nuance and gray areas and state flexibilities that are built into the regulations or proposed regulations. And so states will determine how to implement presumptive eligibility. And we have a lot of materials that we can share on how the states that currently have presumptive eligibility are doing presumptive eligibility. And so I think that's just going to be dependent on your state and how your state decides to implement this policy. And then for the second question, if a family has a licensed exempt provider, it's going to be probably the same thing. It's going to be on a state-by-state basis, depending on how the state determines to provide this policy at the state level, depending on funding, depending on many other things. And so I think that's not specified in the regulation. If you would like to see something more specific, please feel free to include in your public comment and provide suggestions, but a lot of it might be left up to the state and their flexibility that they're able to use.
Hey, Alejandra, I think you just answered my question, but I just want to be sure. So are you able to send us a list of what states are doing?
Yes.
So that we can build on those comments and make the case from great work that we're seeing across the country.
Yes, so there's currently Delaware, Wyoming, I believe it's Montana, and Maryland is the most recent state to implement presumptive eligibility, as well as Monroe County in New York. CLASP has a whole section on presumptive eligibility on our website, so I'm going to share the link with you. We created state profiles for each state on how each state is implementing presumptive eligibility. I will note that not every state is the best example of how to implement presumptive eligibility, and that there's been a lot of conversations on how to make it better. Thanks, Tiffany, for dropping the link in the chat. So just, read everything with a grain of salt. Think about your state, how you would want to see presumptive eligibility in your state, and look at what the current proposed rule is. It is for 90 days or up to 90 days, which is different than some other states. So really take all the information and think about it from your perspective and how it would benefit most the parents in your state.
Thank you, Alejandra. And
I gotta say one more quick thing. I love that picture. It's so diverse and those children are so cute.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Yes, thank you again, Alejandra and Alicia. I think it was Melissa that dropped it in the chat. We love Tiffany. We love Alejandra, and just appreciate all the support from CLASP. So if we could take a minute and put some love in our put some reactions up for our friends at CLASP, that would be awesome. Show our appreciation. And then I am going to turn it over to 2 of our lovely parents who had the pleasure of speaking with ACF on Monday, and just wanted to share with you all a bit about the comments that they were able to talk to ACF about. Melissa, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Melissa Maria, we cannot hear you.
Hey, I was talking, but I was not really talking. I was yelling at my children. So I'm going to be in true mom form because I've been telling them how important this was. And right now, one of my daughters wanted to come out naked, saying that there was paint involved. I've got another daughter here who wants to say something. What do you want to say?
Hi, America.
She knows how important this is because this is my daughter that could not get into Head Start. You cannot go on camera, my darling, because you're naked.
Okay, fine.
Told you I was in true mom form, right? It's summer vacation.
Paisley.
We have a few days left. So I am tuning in from Jackson, Maine. I've been a stay-at-home years. That was my daughter that said hello in America. She was not eligible for Head Start because my husband worked and we barely scraped by based on his gross income. So we were about $7 over when it came to Head Start services. We were very broke, but we weren't broke enough. COVID happened, and the silver lining was that we were eligible for Head Start. It changed our lives. We live in rural Maine. There's no childcare. There was one childcare center, and they had a 2-year waiting list. My kids would probably still be waiting if I was waiting for her childcare. I want to give a shout out to Miss Jordan in Aroostook County, who just had to close her doors because she is doing the same thing as everyone else across America. She's closing her doors because she cannot afford to pay her workers.
Well, I learned today from Miss Jordan, I had a chance to talk to her, that subsidy is 3 weeks behind in paying her too, which isn't helping her make payroll.
I believe we may have lost Melissa. Her connection was a bit spotty, and our interpreter, Melissa, was having some difficulties hearing what she was saying. Mercedes, is the other leader who was in that meeting also here?
Yes.
Yes, hello, everyone. I'm Shars Davis, representing Ohio Head Start Parent Ambassador Alumni Group. Hey, hi, Hazel. How are you? I'm sorry.
Running for what?
I'm sorry.
And running for what?
And I'm running for school board, which I wish I could show you. Actually, I can. I will show you really quickly my if will it show this way? This is, I don't know if you can see that. Wait a minute. I don't know if you can see that very well. This is my campaign picture. Elect Shars Davis, Portsmouth City School Board. I can't tell if you can really see that very well, but
we can see it.
I'm sorry. I like all of that. I just felt the love right there. I don't want to apologize because I know this is a long time coming, and a lot of y'all are my gas. I always say that all the time. You're my gas to the fire of my passion. But that was amazing, seeing all of the hearts that was amazing. But yes, I'm running for school board. I am happy. I actually have a meeting this evening at 7:30 to kind of finalize some things. And as soon as I get that done, I will shoot things out to you. I have a website. I have a QR code. So we're on the ball. We're on the ball right now. But I do want to just mention, about this new rule and how it will affect, not necessarily affect me as of right now, but how it could have helped my family had it been done a while ago, but I am also just grateful that it's here now for the families that need it now. When I first became pregnant, my husband and I, like Melissa said, we didn't have much money, we didn't have much income. So a lot of our choice for me to be a stay-at-home mother was because we couldn't afford childcare. So that's something we just decided to pass up. Okay, I'll just stay home. My husband was the sole provider, and that's what we did. And we budgeted, we made things happen to benefit us being able for me to stay home. So a little bit of a fast forward from that, my son, my oldest son, when he was about 2-ish, we were in early Head Start at that time. They came to my home once a week. We would go to those socializations. I would take him to the library for book time, story time with other children, but he was still very much attached to me. So my husband and I just kind of put our heads together. We decided to start budgeting a little bit more, couponing, eating leftovers so we could stretch our food. I mean, just different things that we did because it was just the two of us and this baby, to put him in daycare part-time because we knew that he needed that socialization. That social emotional is also just as important as actual education for children at that age. So that's what we decided to do. He would be 2 days this week, maybe 3 days the next week, something like that, just depending on numbers at the daycare. So I have a love for children. I would drop my child off, but stay a little longer to help the teachers with, breakfast, or do a craft with them, or be on the playground. And then the kids just kind of gravitated towards me also. And it almost to the point where they thought I was a part-time teacher. So I got asked to be a sub for his daycare. And then I was asked to be full-time after just about 2 or 3 months of him being apart. So even with that, half of my paycheck still went to daycare because at that point he became full-time. So with that, like, there would be times where me and the owner of this private daycare would barter, and she, if I would stay longer, she would only make me pay for 3 days, if I stayed past the time that I was supposed to be there. So this rule been in effect, that 7% to cap us, so we wouldn't have to spend out so much, would have been great. So a little bit further, I now have a second child, who luckily I was pregnant with as my oldest was transitioning out of Head Start. So I was grandfathered in to the program of, Head Start program. So I didn't have to worry about, making too much because I was already a part of the program. And once you're there, they won't kick you out.
Wait for me.
Ma'am, somebody said something? I can't see. Is it? Can I keep
Check with me, mommy.
Go,
Check with
go
me.
ahead, Iris.
Mommy, mom,
Okay.
this way.
So being grandfathered in was a blessing because had we not been grandfathered in, we wouldn't have been able to hit that income. As Melissa was saying, at that point, my husband had gotten a raise. We were making a little bit more. So I wouldn't have been able to be a part of Head Start at that point. So, again, this is something that I'm happy that is being done now for the families that are coming behind me. And still the families that are beside me. And I just, I'm very grateful and happy that there's been enough people now at this seat to be able to say why this is important. Because again, a lot of people think about the education part of a child being in school, but they don't understand the social and emotional that is so important for them to develop early on as well. And I think it's just a great thing. And I'm just happy that, you know, parents had a seat at the table. We were talking to Miss Ruth on Monday. She was saying how she always likes to see parents at the table to get their input and get their questions and knowledge, because I mean, what better person to help us but us? You know what I'm saying? So like, I just very much appreciate Miss Ruth and her team and everybody else, even CLASP, giving us information and really breaking things down to allow us to be able to better understand some of these rules as well. And again, thank you, UPLAN, for giving me this platform, this opportunity to speak, and all of the love that I felt when I first came on camera. I'm Shars Davis, and I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. That's what I'm calling you now. It's in the chat, all the love. Yeah, let's give a round of applause to both of our wonderful parent leaders. I know Melissa got cut off, but appreciate her as well. So are you guys ready for what we came for? Are you ready to submit some comments? Nobody's coming off mute. I can't hear y'all. Are y'all ready?
Yes.
Woo! Yes, yes.
There we go. Awesome. All right. So we have 3 different ways. I had to make it a little complicated. Let me pull it up real quick. We got 3 different ways that we can submit our comments today. So number 1 is going to be the easiest way, and the best way to do it, which is through your cell phone. So our friends at Child Care Aware have actually created their own, it's similar to Phone to Action for those who are familiar, but basically all you do is use this QR code that's in the middle here. Let me circle it. Put your phone up to it with the camera. It'll take you right to that page. And then they already have a comment that they've pre-created. And if you want, you can just submit that. If you plan on doing it that way, I do want to let you know that there are a couple of spaces in there where there's like, it's capitalized and ask question. I don't know how to explain it actually. There, it's in caps lock. So if you see that, you do want to delete it before submitting it. And then number 2 is if you want to make it a little fancy, you can copy and paste our, as in UPLAN's template comment into the Child Care Aware online form. And then number 3, which is my favorite option, is you can hang out with us for a while longer and create your own personalized comment and submit it that way. And we will talk you through how to submit, want to do a more personalized comment. So I will keep this up for a second for those who are using the QR code. And then then I'll see if anybody has questions. I do want to say that no matter how you are submitting the comment, I want to make sure y'all take a minute once you're done doing it and put it in the chat so that we know you did it and we can celebrate you.
Mercedes, real quick, somebody in Spanish wrote, they wrote a great question that I think it was Lilia, the link no está en español. The link is not in Spanish. All public comments have to be submitted in English. So if you go back to the third, because these only have the 2 options, and then there's the third option on the next slide, Mercedes, just so that they know. So taking it back, the first option, you could just use what the partners have already. And then the second and the third option will really help UPLAN get its name out. But more importantly, we provide ways that the rule could improve for families and what ways that we think that it could do more. For option 2 and 3, it's easier to do it off of a computer. The only one where it's easy to do over the phone is the first one. And I'm already hearing back comments that they did it. Great. Thank you. So to repeat for the Spanish speaking parents, we did provide language that's in Spanish so that you know what we included in our template, but the comments have to be submitted in English. We will stay on to help Spanish speaking parents or anybody who needs support if you guys want us to do so. I love if you guys can personalize it. If you have a story like Sharez and Melissa of how it personally impacted you or your community. I'm continuing to get messages of how people are already submitting it, so it's great to hear.
Thank you for that clarification, Alma. Appreciate you. And it looks like, yep, folks are submitting it. I am actually, I don't know, I wanted to play some music because it was a party vibe, but it is not going well. But let's see what happens if I try it from my phone.
Thank you, Christelle and Candy and Lilia and Miss Rose and Salina for doing it. We have so many of you who already completed it. Thank you all. We can continue dancing. If you need help, raise your hand. We're here to support you in any way that you need. Erin, can you reshare the links, please, for some of them that need the links again?
I see you dancing over there, Jacqueline. Where's Miss Rose at? Miss Rose, I don't see those dance moves.
I can't walk. How I'm gonna dance?
Just a little shimmy. Just a little.
Iris raised her hand that she has a question.
Yes.
We love when you have questions.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So as I'm reading the comments online, I'm just really curious as to how the percentage, 7% was came up with instead of it being a lower percentage.
That is a great question. Alejandra or Tiffany, do you guys want to take that, or would you like me to answer it?
I don't mind starting, and then Mercedes, if you want to add anything, I can. Okay. So the 7% comes from the 2016 rule when CCDBG was reauthorized in 2014. There was a study that was done about what families are paying for co-payments. And the study found that families that earn higher incomes or in higher income brackets or tax brackets pay about 7% of their income on childcare, while other families were paying much higher percentages. And so 7% was used as a goal of what all families should pay. And so that was kind of used just in 2016 as a goal or a federal benchmark. And now it's become a requirement. So that is now the highest that co-pays will be. But of course, any lower, is great. 7% is just a starting point. So please feel free in your comments to advocate for 0% and as low as you wish to put, but that is where the 7% comes from.
Thank you.
Of course.
And it looks like, oh, somebody else just said they're done. Jessica, awesome. I do want to note, I know you guys are putting these comments in and we appreciate you for it. But just want to remind folks the deadline is the 28th. So if you have friends, you have family members, like share either the link from Child Care Aware with them, or you feel free to share our toolkit if they want to submit their own comments that way. But the more comments, the better. Do want to recognize that, again, as we said earlier, that this rule is a step in the right direction. It is not the end all be all, but it is moving the needle for sure. So please, please, please make sure you share.
But you can't eat a whole sandwich at once. You got to take a bite at a time, man.
That's right, Rachel. I love Maine. Y'all in Maine are awesome.
We try.
I'm going to put some music back on. If y'all have more questions, feel free. If you want to just dance with us, you can. If you got to go, we understand that as well. But just want to, again, appreciate you all. We had like over 50, I think I saw 57 people at one point on here. So amazing. Thank you, everybody. Like I said, we're going to stay on for a bit. And I'm gonna put some music on, so feel free to dance, feel free to submit comments or ask questions.
Mercedes, I'm not sure if you're seeing Melissa and Sarah's hand.
I am not. Thank you so much, Melissa. I don't know who was first, but
Melissa was first.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, I'm just gonna go first because I probably have like a short amount of time before my Wi-Fi hates me. But you guys, I appreciate all of you. ACF, honestly, they met with us. We had like a whole meeting with them. They heard what we wanted to say. They took it to heart. They know it. They know childcare is the backbone of our economy right now. They know it. And what they could express, right? They could not take anything else away from that meeting, but Congress, it is on them. It's on Congress to hear us. The cries, the pleads, the screaming. It's from the rural communities of Maine. We're screaming from the rural communities. Can you please give us access to quality child care? I've been a stay-at-home mom 7 years. I've made a career of advocating for childcare. You shouldn't be able to make a career out of it. You might want to yell for a little bit, but it's not a career. We all know this. We need to do this. Put our comments in. Let them hear us. It's time. I'm going to take a note from Sharif Davis. I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Melissa. Yes, take us to church. And then I see Miss Sarah, can never forget you.
Hi, everybody. I just have a question with regards to the template that Erin put up. I brought it up. Now I'm just trying to figure out, clearly I know how to copy, but I'm not tech savvy. So how can I post it to the link for, because all we have was a QR code.
So what we can do, Sarah, is drop that link. I don't know if Erin, you can drop it or somebody drop the link for the Child Care Aware in the chat. And then what you can do, Sarah, is just, as you said, copy the template from us and then delete the one that is in the Child Care Aware's comment box and put the other one in there.
Okay, so I'm doing that now as we speak, because we all know Sarah's not tech savvy when it comes to copying and pasting from Zoom.
That's why we're here. We got you.
As I just took the screen off. Okay. The form where you can paste the UPLAN template. Okay. So we just drop it in the comment section. It'll fit all of that.
Yep. So delete the one that's currently in there and then drop and then paste ours and it will go in there.
Okay.
Toyin did it. I see you, my fellow Rochesterian, Monroe County, best county.
Jury's still out.
All right, y'all, I'm gonna put this music back on. Sarah, if you have need more assistance, just let me know.
No, I copied it. So now I'm just putting my information in so they know it's me.
Yep.
And we are going to send a follow-up email, right? In case you want to share, continue sharing out through August 28th. Thank you, Tiffany, for answering someone's question in the chat. You can submit comments till midnight on August 28th.
11:59.
11:59, right.
That's my little girl's birthday. She didn't get into Head Start. And she doesn't have childcare.
Happy birthday.
So let's help her grandbabies, okay? So I don't have to watch.
She's gonna come hang out with me while we have our meeting, and it's
Oh,
gonna
no,
be
she's
the
not,
best.
'cause we're gonna save the world. And listen, Sonia is not watching grandbabies no more. We're not. We have. Listen, we're advocating for childcare. It's time. Enough is enough.
I wish I could watch my grandson.
Enough is enough. Can we tell Congress that enough is enough?
I mean, I wish I had
that
someone to
loud
watch
and
my
clear.
kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have somebody who said, can we submit more than one comment? And I think somebody earlier said, could they submit more like if a family member, like per person?
Say the question again, Alma. I'm sorry.
There was two. I know I saw one. So one recently said, so can we submit more than one comment? Holly asked that question. And earlier it's, could we submit more than one comment per family? So I'm assuming if it's like your husband, your, you know, how old does a person have to be able to submit a comment?
Alejandra or Alicia, that might be a question for you. I don't know if there's like an age restriction on who can submit. I would assume not, but that's me making it. I will ask the experts.
Well, I was going to say, I'm not sure if there's an age restriction. And yes, more than one comment per family, for sure. I can check the Federal Register and get back to you all in just a minute to double check, but I don't think there's any sort of age restriction. Alejandra?
I would just say if you are submitting multiple comments, like think about the reason why you're submitting multiple comments. And if you're able to include everything in the one comment that you're creating, just thinking about like what makes most sense and like not adding double work on yourself. That would just be my only suggestion. I also don't know about the age limit, but I'm sure we can look it up and get back to you.
I have a related question. Do you think that they would throw multiple comments out if they are all coming from the same email address? Would you need to use a different email address for multiple comments?
No, I don't believe so. They're required to read all public comments that come through. So as many comments come, they're required to read them.
So I don't know about federally, but I know in the state of Maine, you have to be 13 years old to submit public comment unless the committee makes an exception for you. I don't know if that's a federal thing or it's just, you know, Maine trying to not have to hear our children or what that is, but that's what it looks like here.
I did not know this.
The committee loves my 8-year-old, so they make an exception for her.
Oh. And I do want to say, y'all, like, yes, we want as many comments as possible, but we want them to be quality, right? Like, we don't want to send too many of the same comments. If we could do something like, you know, change them up, make them unique and more personalized to your experience and your story, that's really what's going to be impactful. So again, more about we do want lots of comments, but we want them to be something that they don't feel just like a cutout of what they've already read over and over again. That makes sense. And it looks like our main crew has their hands up again, and I'm gonna go on mute because my dogs are barking.
So one thing that I know working with our Congress and how much they don't want to hear us, a personal story 100% of the time will stick in somebody's head more than a cookie cutter comment. So I could walk in and be like, support better access to childcare and do it right now. But if I walk in and I say, hi, I'm Rachel, I'm a Maine State Parent Ambassador, and I'm a mom of 2 special needs children who have been consistently removed from childcare, either because of my inability to pay or their inability to support my children, I would appreciate if you could support better access to childcare where it's safe and affordable. That'll stick in their head a lot longer. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind when you're submitting your comments too. A personal story will always get you farther.
Yes, absolutely, Rachel. Thank you for that. And I do want to, Melissa, I'm definitely going to call you on you, but just want to read what Erin put in the chat, just so folks know. Organizations can submit organizational comments as well. So if your organization wants to do it, please do. We also in our toolkit have a sample of that as well. And then also, I don't know if I can say this, if it's still open, Alicia and Alejandra, but there was a sign-on letter for CLASP as well. And so if if your organization is interested in that, you should definitely talk to CLASP. But Melissa, you are on deck.
My girl, Mercedes, we can hear me? Okay. You guys, it's time. We have to stop the nonsense. There's 27 people on the call, right? There was like 60. But we have so many in Maine, right? Maine's gonna go real hard. I'm gonna tell you that. Maine's going hard. We have to do this. Congress needs to get it together. We need to knock it off. We need to stop saying childcare is a priority. Oh, it is. It's a priority. Put your money where your mouth is, Biden, your VP, whoever's going to be in Congress. Let's knock it off. Let's put parents first. It's been 7 years I've been a stay-at-home mom.
I think we have to remember, Melissa, that this is not about Biden. I think we have to remember this is about the House and the Senate, because he can't do anything unless those two pass. So, you know.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Sarah, I love you. So let's elect somebody in Congress, right? It's not the president.
Right.
Can we not get some people in charge who are not going to say, oh, child care is a priority? Can we make it a priority?
Exactly.
Is it a priority? Let's make it a priority, because every state in the United States needs this.
Right.
I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom anymore.
We knew
I have valuable skills.
Right. And that's what bothers me so much. It was so important during COVID, but now it's not important anymore.
Sarah, love you, girl. But guess what? It's still important.
Of course it is. You don't gotta tell me that twice.
UPLAN showed up tonight. We have skills. They're valuable. We all need to go to work in our states. Enough is enough. We need childcare. We need it affordable. We need access. We need it safe. We need subsidies that providers are going to accept. They're not accepting them because parents can't even afford them. And then they're closing their doors.
Well, that's all.
They're closing the doors.
Justice, right? Because we know that they align it that way.
It's sad, right? People want to help us and they can't. They can't make a living off of the things that support this economy.
Absolutely, Melissa. I think we just found our new hype person for our national conference. So y'all get ready for Melissa. I know we're over time. Like I said, if y'all want to stay on and you still want to submit comments or need support, feel free to stay on. Alejandra, I see you have your hand up.
Thanks, Mercedes. I just wanted to follow up on what Melissa is saying, which I think is really important, that when we are thinking about these public comments, we're also thinking about the funding that states are not getting in order to put these in place. And so although this is administrative advocacy and we can only advocate for what's in the rule or the proposed rule, there is also space to make sure that ACF recognizes the burden that this is going to put on states, especially as we are getting closer to the expiration of the all of the relief funding that came from COVID, as Sarah was just mentioning. And so I think it's really important to consider making sure that ACF recognizes this in their final rule and provide states enough time to really be able to implement these directly, and it's not taking away from other children who are currently benefiting and actually do need the services. And so I think it is really important to consider what Melissa's saying when we're thinking about the response to ACF, but also on the other hand, considering continuing our congressional advocacy, because we need to do both in order to move forward. And right now, this is just on administrative advocacy, but we also need to continue our congressional advocacy. And I want to pass it over to Tiffany because I see that your hand's up as well.
Yes, thanks, Alejandra. That's a great point. And the only other point that I was going to make is on the congressional advocacy that Alejandra was touching on towards the end of what she was saying, and also letting ACF, HHS know that proposals that have already been put up in Congress, like Build Back Better, that had some of the same kind of provisions that we see in this NPRM, like, you know, a maximum of 7% copays for families, things like that, that those bills, as they come back around, are prioritized, and that HHS can work with Congress to secure additional funding and transformative childcare bills like Build Back Better. So just wanted to add that as well. And thanks for starting off that that comment, Alejandra, because it is really important.
I got it.
Yeah, blow some bubbles. You want to say hi?
Hi. Mom, how can you blow bubbles?
Just blow. You know who will know how to do it? Papa. Go ask Papa.
Mama, Papa got some cookies for you and me. You want some Papa?
Thank you, Sarah.
You want some cookies, Mama?
All right. It looks like CLASP has to go as well. Thank you again. Let me turn that down. Thank you again, Alejandra and Tiffany. Appreciate you so much.